Hey, everybody, we're back. And my next guest is a hilarious comedian who's done everything, including Comedy Central Presents, where it was one of the network's highest rated half-hour specials ever. He was also a finalist on Last Comic Standing. And now his brand new comedy special, Adrift in Predicaments, was filmed right here in our very own Governor's Comedy Club. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, the great DC Benny. DC, how you doing, man? How's everything going?
Hey, Don, I'm good. Hanging in. What's happening, buddy? What are we going to talk about?
For me, I've just been, doing what I got to do during the COVID era, the quarantine. It looks like we're starting to get back into that. How have you been dealing with these last like 7 months doing this?
I've been very busy with a lot of little projects. That's, just working on stuff around the house. And we have a rental out here in Long Island that you know, it's like a beach rental and that needed to be totally renovated. So we did it. I learned a lot. Like, you need a permit for an outdoor shower or your shit gets shut down. Didn't know that.
They love permits out here. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've just been, trying not to go through comedy withdrawal, stage withdrawal, man. I mean, I've been also posting a lot of videos on YouTube, like sort of long chunks of stories that I wanted to work out on stage. So they're kind of raw and unfinished, and but it's something. It feels like I'm doing something, and
Yeah.
the stuff that I wanted to get to. There's a lot of stuff that I wanted to get to, and now I have all this time to get to it.
That's the pros. So some comedians are enjoying this. Like I talked to Joe Matarese last week, and he loves he loves quarantine.
I'm still liking it.
He's getting a lot done, and being able to write and kind of focus on different projects. For other guys, they're chomping at the bit to kind of get out there and get back on stages. But because guys like you've been at it for a long time, really, grinding it out in the city. In fact, I don't know if you remember, I interviewed you about 20 years ago at the Zinc Bar in Manhattan when you were doing those shows, the storytelling shows. And I guess so you recently posted about it, and I was like,
are you talking about this?
Yeah, yes. I was there.
Fire.
Dude, I was there, and I interviewed you over the phone beforehand. Then I went to the show, and Jay Okerson was there, Greg Wilson, Vic Henley, the late great Vic Henley was there, and it was awesome. And I remember it was all storytelling, and I think the topic was the first time you lost your virginity, or some kind, or the craziest sex story, or something like that. Because I remember Jay Okerson's story where he swapped him and his girlfriend or whatever decided to try swapping, and he the whole time she was worried about it, and he was into it. And then when they finally did it, the girl he was having sex with was crying the whole time. And then her husband is right next to them, just going to town on his wife, and his girlfriend is loving it. So I always remember that story.
That was what's great about that room is those stories. No one ever heard them anywhere else. Like, nobody was doing them on stage, and that is such a Jay Okerson story too. I mean, I knew when we said Jay Okerson, I'm like, oh, there's gonna be some wife swapping. There's gonna be a menage and like a Nazi war helmet or something. But it was, that show was a great time, and I was just talking to Bert Kreischer on his podcast about it, because Bert had just come to New York, and the first 3 weeks that I did this show, he helped me host it, and he brought all these friends of his from Florida. So the whole audience, people from Florida, in a jazz bar in the middle of New York, that kind of expecting stand up, and then they got these stories. It was a lot of fun, though, man. I love that.
It was so great, and the vibe in that room. It was such a small room too. It wasn't like a normal kind of like a seating. Right? It was kind of like really jazz feeling and hipster. The lighting. It was just a cool atmosphere, man.
The Zinc Bar, yeah, the Zinc Bar. It was the old Zinc Bar on Houston Street, and they had jazz afterwards, and it was just, I loved that room. I loved doing that. But promoting a show, it takes a lot, and I had to go on the road and bounce around, and so I did other iterations of it. It went for a while, and that was before anybody was doing storytelling, comedy storytelling.
Live from New York City.
I always wonder what comedians' lives are like off stage.
That we were, that was like the first of it. And now
you definitely started that whole thing because like I said, I was covering stand-up back then for like Good Times magazine in Long Island. I was doing writing here and there for different stand-up upstart magazines and stuff, and that's how I got in touch with you back then. And then through the years, you see like this is not happening like on Comedy Central, and I'm like, I swear to you, dude. And I'm not trying to stir you up or anything, but when I first saw that show, I actually looked for the credits because I was like, shit, man, his show finally got there. And that's just BS, dude.
More power to the dude. The what happened was we shot a pilot of Urban Myth and took it to Comedy Central, and they told us that their audience didn't have the attention span for stories, and then
yep.
And then this is not happening. But the thing is that I can't bitch about it. It's like a network wants to work with who they want to work with, and that's what they did. They just they wanted to work with Ari, and so that's what they did. I can't, it's not like the first time it's happened. It won't be the last. But we did, our show was the first one, and it was great, man. I loved doing that thing, and I'd hoped it would somehow find its way onto a TV, and God, man, the people that came through there. I mean, Ben Bailey, Robert Kelly, Gaffigan even came in, and
wow, cool.
Tony Woods, Mike Epps. I go down the list of guys. It was great, man. It was a great time.
That was such a great time. It feels like for stand-up too. It was like the early 2000s, the late 90s, early 2000s. I forget if it was before or after 9/11 when I went there. It feels like it was beforehand, just because the tone of the city. But I could be wrong. But it was just such. It feels like such a great time for stand-up, and like maybe the last great days. With cancel culture and all this stuff. I wonder if there'll ever be that kind of like comedy. I wouldn't call it that the Renaissance. I think the Renaissance was probably 70s and 80s, but it was a great time for comedy, man, especially in Manhattan, in the city.
It was great because I remember bouncing from the Cellar to the Boston to the all these little rooms. Then I had that. It was just like the Bermuda Triangle of comedy. It was just everywhere you go. There's these little places popping up, you disappear into them, you do your thing, and it was the cancel culture now. Much has been said about it, but I do feel like there's going to be so much of a reaction against it sooner or later. It's just, people want to laugh. You don't want to be told what to laugh at, and I was posting something the other day, like a picture I posted. Somebody texted me, was like, hey man, you need to take that picture down because that someone's gonna get offended and whatever. And I had to sit for like 45 minutes and be like, why someone's getting offended by this picture? But I just don't need it now. I don't need the headache of it all.
Everybody, it's gotten very sensitive. It was very sensitive now. The comedic climate, everything's very sensitive. People send emails, I get offended. I get offended.
It is a crazy time. That was a great kind of renaissance, for comedy, where it was just no holds barred. The roasts back then.
Man,
God, the roasts. I did Barry Katz's roast, Rich Voss's roast, Patrice O'Neal's roast, like doing all those. There was just no punches pulled.
This comes after a court case you may have heard of late. Barry's 5-year contracts have been accused of rape. A husband and a manager, 2 jobs. What's the trick? Hey, Mark Maron has 2 jobs. He's simultaneously an asshole and a prick.
They were brutal, and that's what, it was, and you knew going into it, that's what it was going to be. those were great days, man. They were great days, and I hope it gets back to that.
I hope we can get back to that, man. Because like even with your kind of style of comedy, just doing the characters, and your characters do lean into stereotypes, and they're funny. And like I just was watching the Great Habibi and stuff like that.
Well, I remember there was a period of time I got sick of doing my act. I wanted to do something on purpose that was offensive as it could be, and just see what happened. So I started doing this character on stage, and people believed it was real. It was this angry Middle Eastern comic called the Great Habibi, right? And I came out. My opening joke was, "I hate juice, orange juice, apple juice, grapefruit juice."
Is this stuff that you are concerned about or worried about when you go on stage now, or do you just go, you know what, this is my act, let's see what happens?
I kind of, listen, people can say stereotypes, but the characters that I do, they're ethnic. They tend to be ethnic, and I have a real love for those ethnic groups. It comes from a place of love. I'm not gonna, I'm not shitting on them. I'm representing them. To me, the ultimate compliment is, like, for instance, the Great Habibi story. The ultimate compliment, for those of you who haven't heard it, or whoever's listening or watching or whatever, whoever sees this, I did a sort of a Middle Eastern comedian character. I would come on as a Middle Eastern comic, and people believed I was the dude, which is what, and Arabs and Israelis would come up because I'd throw in a couple words, Khamsin Dollar, I'd throw in these words, and people would believe that it really was the guy. And that, to me, was the barometer of whether or not I should keep. I don't care if somebody comes up and they're like, it's offensive. I one of the last shows I did before COVID, it was like one of these Brooklyn rooms, and this is New York. Okay,
right. Exactly.
New York. I can't believe, I'm in there, and these girls booked me to be on the show, and it was like a hipster room or whatever. And before I go on, they come up and they're like, "Now, we don't want you to talk about nothing misogynistic," and they started giving me this list. And the last thing on the list was, "Don't do any voices or characters from countries you're not from." I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Have you watched what I do?
Get out of the stall. I go to leave. They're blocking the door. I'm like, no. And one of the guys comes up to me. He's like, "You are American?" "Yes." "You are American?" I was like, "No, I am a Great Habibi," right? That guy looked at me. He's like, "I know. I buy your album 15 years ago."
That's your whole thing.
I've never heard that before. Like, don't do any impressions or characters from a place you're not from. And that just blew my mind. I'm like, well, I'm never going back to this place. I was like, I'm going up there and I'm gonna do what I always do. Because the thing about that room is it had shifted the bookers or whatever. It was the same crowd, and I'd been going to it. It was near where I lived at the time. And I'd done all my stuff, and no one cared. It was all, little hipsters and the skinny jeans and all that stuff. No one cared. They laughed at it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Concern, like, it was just so funny, man. And that, to me, is the death of comedy. When I hear that kind of stuff, I'm like, I don't really want to associate myself with it. I'm going to do what I do. If you don't like it, you're offended, you can leave, or you can say something or whatever. But I don't get off on being offensive, and I don't want to offend people. I really don't. I want them to come and laugh and whatever, but I just can't have these rules. As right. A company or whatever, you go, there's enough rules out there where you got a corporate gig, you can't say anything about anything. It used to be colleges. I haven't done one in a long time, but the colleges, there'd be a whole list of stuff that you can't. As soon as you get to college, that's all the kids want to hear. Now I think it's different, but all they wanted to hear was all the stuff that you're not supposed to talk about.
Right, exactly. They thrived on that.
So if the administrator wasn't there, you just you give them what they want, But I think it is. I haven't been on stage in so long. I've kind of, I'm in this bubble here with it. I wonder. It just surprises me that New York is they have a stick up their ass so much about this stuff, and then I go to other parts of the country, and it isn't so much like that, or it has over the last year. That was my feeling. I feel like New York being the mecca of stand-up, the cancel culture wouldn't be as prevalent because there's so many just everybody's forced to be together, but just this,
Yeah.
it's there so much. It's crazy.
Then I moved to New York. I moved to Brooklyn, and my neighborhood was hostile when I moved there. Like this 30 years ago, the first day I'm there, I get in a confrontation, with this guy. I ought to bust your face. I ought to bust your face. You stand on my block, you don't show no respect, you look in my eye. I ought to bust your face. I was like, look, officer, I'm just trying to...
It is crazy because I was thinking too about like guys like Bob Nelson, whose act was that whole football thing, and he would go through that, the United Way, and he'd do all that.
Football in my life. I love football. You can be playing football on the football field with a football.
I'm like, I don't know if because he still does the same stuff, and I'm like, I don't know how that is going to go over in this culture anymore. But but to your point, yours characters, like I love your uncle-in-law too, the racist uncle-in-law.
We had a party, and we invited our friends, all different shapes, size, colors, and we invited him, which in retrospect was kind of a mistake, because he showed up and he kept trapping people in these conversations. There'd be one of my white friends, and he'd have him on the wall, and he'd be like, "See, you feel that way because you're white. White is without color. See, white people came from the ice. Brothers came from the sun. That's why white people can wear shorts in October and shit like that. You understand?"
That's a hilarious piece. But I think with your stuff, they contribute to the storytelling.
It's part of the story. It's what moves the story along, and it's my life. These are people in my life that I'm talking about. So if you don't like it, you're not in my life.
Right? Yeah.
You want to go for the ride, we'll go for the ride. It's like a road trip, or whatever. But you cannot tell me I can't talk about these people in my life. I'm not just making a random observation about, oh, that guy with the turban, or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah.
Dude, this is a thing that happened, and this is something, for me, that Great Habibi story was really hard to bring the stage at any point.
Yeah.
At any point. And I really just wanted to get it recorded before I couldn't do it anymore, because I can't imagine doing that story now. I can't imagine doing it. It's like, I don't even know if that thing's going to get any airplay. You know what I mean?
So everybody's laughing at the table except for this lady. So she keeps asking me more questions. She's like, so are you married? I'm like, yes, I have 7 wives, one for each day of the week. Tuesday is my favorite. I drill her like oil field, fracking all night, fracking in the butt. Right? Everybody's laughing at the table. This lady not laughing.
I don't know. But it was a time in the city where, this stuff happened. It was like, you'd experiment as a comedian, going on doing different characters. There was a guy, who was a comic at the time who was from the Middle East and did his whole act about being a Middle Eastern terrorist or whatever. You could never have that now.
Silence! I kill you!
Right.
And,
Yeah.
for me, that particular story was important to preserve a little of the history of what we all went through at that time. I mean, that's for me what these stories are, is they're funny, but there's a little bit of history, that I hope doesn't get lost. One day someone looks back and they're like, holy shit, they did it. The Great Habibi, you were allowed to do that?
Yeah, you were like, exactly. You got that on the recording, and recorded at the brokerage, which was really cool too.
Yes, recorded at the brokerage, indeed. And I don't think anybody got offended by it that I know of.
No, everyone was digging it. It's a hilarious story.
So she's like, let me switch gears a minute. Now, one of the concerns here is language. One of the concerns is language. If there's going to be a language barrier, are there phrases that are different, like your language and culturally with our language? And I was like, yes, like the phrase camel toe. In my country, it's not insult, it's compliment. It means your vagina have the strength of 1,000 camel. Right?
And to me, like this whole, cancel culture thing, I just wanted to like go away. I think when you start to mess with comedy, which is the last kind of voice that is honest, that could tell society, hey, look, here's the mirror, look at yourselves. If you start taking that away and not allowing that, I think we're really in for it, man.
People don't like to hear the truth. They really don't. They like to create and my truth is not going to always be someone else's. But the thing is, if I can't do comedy the way I want to, I'm not going to do comedy. So as of now, we'll see what happens when everything goes back. But you just can't. I just think, even if there's a law that says you are not allowed to, do voices from places you're not from, there's going to be an underground movement of people doing voices. There's going to be just a segment of people doing voices. You're going to walk into rooms and be like, whatever.
Everyone's just free to do it. Like you said, there'll always be people are going to make a movement to do it no matter what. Like right now, we're not allowed in New York to have ticketed comedy shows, but there's still these secret underground shows all over the place. There's rooftop shows in the city, in Brooklyn. There's basement shows. People are finding a way, no matter what. You can't stop people from, doing what they want in a way, or you know what I'm saying? So, and that's the thing with this cancel culture. I was talking a while ago to Tom Dreesen, who was like furious about cancel culture. It was great to see him actually get fired up like that.
I dare, anytime somebody comes to me with politically correct bullshit, I tell them, I get angry when I even speak about it.
Right.
Who are you? Who are you? We keep apologizing to you and we don't know who you are. We know who the Republicans are. We know who the Democrats are. We know who the Independents are. We know who the Kiwanis, the Moose, the Elks are. We know who the Ku Klux Klan is, but we don't know who you are. And we keep apologizing to you. It's BS.
But he's like, who are these people? They have no face. Like, who's the leader? Who could we negotiate? Who could we talk to about this? It's just this weird, movement that we can't see it. We just feel it, the impact.
Well, a lot of it's because there aren't faces, because so much of it is on the internet. It's so much is on Twitter and Instagram and here, that you never have to meet the people who are the representatives of the cancel culture. They can just nullify your life's work.
Right.
I mean, even like, okay, so I'm on this show, Supermarket Sweep now.
Welcome to Supermarket Sweep.
It's a game show. It's on ABC, and Leslie Jones called me up. I was like, "Do you want to do this show?" And I'm like, "What am I going to do on it?" She's like, "I don't know. We're going to get you on it, And I'm going to say that, the people, maybe some of the people behind it didn't necessarily really have anything invested in having me on it, but Leslie, they were just they want Leslie to be happy and whatever. So, and they didn't know me, I was kind of like an unknown, I'm not a superstar on that level.
Right.
So when I went out there, I don't know all I know is I'm going out there. I don't really know what I'm doing. It's just, I'm going to be there. And I get off the plane and I get to the set and like the producers and all the people are there and they're like, hey, hey, DC or whatever. And Leslie's like, you're gonna pop your collar like it's the 80s, like you're Manny from Scarface, right? And I just see them like, me. So I'm this cashier. I'm like the head cashier, the manager of the supermarket on the show. And I say these things. Eventually, we started being able to squeeze in a few lines that I would write, and they're kind of like flirtatious. They're very flirtatious or whatever, but they're kind of benign or whatever. So,
DC, what you wearing as your Halloween costume?
The Emperor.
Really? Which emperor?
The one with no clothes, baby.
I don't know what I said. I can't remember the line, but if you see them, they get progressively just a little bit more.
You gonna get DC and his crew to get to tabulating.
I put the elation in tabulation, baby.
Can you say that to women? I bet you that works.
Oh, yeah.
so somebody wrote, that cashier is kind of creepy. he's kind of a misogynist or whatever. It was like one person made this comment, but it was the most benign line. It was like something like, I'm popping collars and counting dollars, baby, or something like that. It's just ridiculous. But it's so funny to me to see. Meanwhile, other people really like it, and the show's going great, and it's fun to be a part of it. It's fun to have somebody rooting for you. That's like trying to insert. She knows what I do. Lenny Marcus, who's the producer, knows what I do. So they kind of like push for me to get a line in here or there that's actually funny, and it's just the reason I went on this whole long thing about it is just that you can't tell what people are going to be offended by. I said something super benign, and then somebody way out in the middle of nowhere, got their knickers in a twist about something really small. So it's just, there's no way, even with cancel culture, even if everything's canceled, you're still going to offend somebody,
It's impossible to please them all, especially with, like you said, with social media. All it takes is one little text or a tweet or whatever, or unlike button, a thumbs down button. You know what I mean? And it's crazy because people pay attention to these, to the, all those kind of stats.
The thing is, you can't pay attention to it. You can't, like, you and I can't pay attention. These other people are going to pay attention to whatever. I did a special in a dry bar special in Utah, which is all Mormons, and you can't say anything. And the last time I had been out there, it was probably about 15-20 years ago in Provo, and there was no alcohol then. It was a dry state. Now it was like you can get it if you get food in a limited amount or whatever. Right. So it casts a certain aura over the whole procedure, but the amount of stuff that you could not say, you couldn't say God, you couldn't say this, you couldn't say that, you couldn't say that. So I'm like, okay, I can work with it. I'll work with it. And I would push it up to the edge of saying something, like mother flower or something like that. Right. And it was fine. It was weird because it was less the audience. I was warned that the audience would kind of clam up if you crossed the boundary or whatever, but it really wasn't the audience. It was more, the people who administrate to this stuff, or who, it just the fear of offending. I'm like, God, when did we all get to be so easily offended, man? I mean, it's like we're all riding around with helmets and stuff on our fucking 10-speed, I mean, I was talking to somebody when I was growing up, dude. My dad would send me to buy. I'm 8 years old on my bike. I had a note for the Chinese restaurant where they had a cigarette machine. I get him his Marlboro Reds, and then I would go to the liquor store, and I had a note for the Korean guy at the liquor store to get Almaden Mountain Red Burgundy. I would put it in my bike. I'm like 8 years old, man. No helmet. I'm riding no hand. Holding the gallon jug of Almond Red Burgundy. I mean, now my parents would have lost custody of me.
It's crazy times, man. But we need comedy more than ever, and and that's why comedians got to stay the course. We can't give in. We can't. You can't be submissive to these outrage specialists, these SJWs. But no, this is great. I like I said, I loved everything. The brokerage special is great. I just watched it again recently.
It's on Bill Burr's what is that? All Things Comedy. It's on YouTube. People can watch it on there. So you don't have to pay anything. You get to watch it. There it is. It's funny. It's all black and white. It's old school, man. We did it with I'm not out there with leather pants and a DJ and backup dancers in a theater. It's just like in a club with a dude with a mic, and that's to me what comedy is.
Exactly. It's real. It feels real, and that's what I love about it.
I'm like, dude, I don't understand. He's like, you know what? I'll tell you what it is. This is because you're Jewish. That's what it is. See, the Jews, what they do is they miscommunicate. You miscommunicated the potency. That's what Jews do, and that's how circumcision got invented. It was a miscommunication of agriculture advice from God to Moses. God said, tell them if they want them to grow, they must chop the tops off the crops. Moses said, chop the tops off and that's what happened. That's how it went down.
So just tell everybody where they could find your stuff, where they could watch Adrift in Predicaments and all that good stuff.
Okay, so here's the crucial stuff. Adrift and Predicaments, the special, is on All Things Comedy's YouTube channel. Okay, I have my own YouTube channel, and I post up raw stories almost about every other week. So they're adult bedtime stories, and I post up stand-up clips and things like that. I'm the real DC Benny on Instagram, and I teach a comedy class, comedy storytelling at Manhattan Comedy Institute. So that's a lot of fun. 6 weeks, and we work out stories, and there's comedians and people who aren't comedians and whatever, and it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy doing it. So all those things are there. Hopefully you guys will check out the work, and more of it's coming. And it was good seeing you, Don. Be safe. Let's get through it. Let's get back out there and make people laugh, man. That's what we do.
Yes, indeed, my friend. It was great to see you. Thank you so much for doing this, and I appreciate it. DC Benny, everybody. Thanks, man.
Oh, hello, this is Chris Fairbanks from the wildly popular podcast You Need a Ride, with a very special announcement. This is good news. Don Sill's show, Shut Up and Stand Up, from the Governor's Comedy Club in Levittown, New York. I believe I'm saying that right. It's a show that they do in an alley behind Comedy Club. Governor's Comedy Club, I believe, which is why it's Gov's radio show. Anyway, this just in, the show itself and the information it provides has proven to prevent COVID. The only thing people have been doing is wearing these N93 masks, which if you wear them too much, the virus can connect to that. The great thing about this show is through the airwaves, it will enter your ears and into your face, where the virus resides in the nasal passage. You see the ears are nearby, and the sound waves have known themselves to break. They know themselves that they will break up the virus and send it right out your nostrils. So you can infect other people, but it will relieve you of the virus. So it's great news. Be sure and spread the word. I don't know that any scientists have backed this up.